I just wanted to record a quick clip of kind of my expectations for dogs on walks. I really want dogs to be able to kind of sniff and explore their environment a little bit before we kind of clock in, so to speak. So I always break down working versus sniffy walk. Sniffy walk, my primary cue for the dog is that I switch to that back clip. So she normally wears a gentle leader when she's working, so I still have that on her, but it's not where the leash is attached. So it's not putting any pressure on her face or her neck. It's most of that leash pressure is coming from that back clip. So that clip lets her know that this is her time to be able to go explore and sniff and pee and do whatever she wants to do. When I put her on her gentle leader or a front clip of some sort, that's when we're clocking in and going back to work. So I always like to give dogs a chance to explore and kind of sniff around a little so they know that the environment is safe and there's nothing to be worried about. It also allows me to kind of gauge the dog to see where they're at. So right here I'm going to see if she can respond to a cue. Mila! Yes, good girl. If she can hear me and she can, oops, sorry, you got stuck. Her love. If she can hear me and respond and eat food pretty easily, then I know we're still in a good state of mind. If she was not responsive or she didn't take food, it would let me know that she was maybe a little bit too worked up to expect her to clock in and actually do like a nice heel work, which takes a lot more work and a lot more effort for her. So I kind of want to pick my battles a little bit. So I don't want to try to ask her to do more than what she's capable of at any given moment. So like I said, this allows me to kind of check in with her a little bit, girl, and see if she's actually able to focus. Let's go. Mila. Good girl. There's a dog in the distance, so I wanted to kind of move her the other way. It doesn't mean that you can't do tasks when you're on a sniffy walk. It just means that that's not the focus. So my focus is not on, let's go. My focus is not on healing, but she's always, hi, sweetie. She's always expected to respond. So if I call her or say her name or something, I do want to make sure she still responds to me and still comes back when I need her to. So we can practice little games like recall games and things like that while we're on a sniffy walk. But I'm just not really going to expect her to do any healing. Good girl. There's lots of dogs around here, I know. And you can probably hear all the kids in the distance. There's a lot going on at the park today. Leave it. Good girl. Good girl. So, like I said, I want to kind of give her a chance. Let's go. To get comfortable in her environment, sniff around, be a dog. It allows me to kind of scope out the environment a little bit. Obviously, there's a bunch of dogs here that we weren't originally anticipating and other things going on. And so it gives us all a chance to get acclimated before we clock in and actually do some heel work. With the sniffy walk, I do like it to be pretty dog directed. So for the most part, I'm going where she wants to go. But I am kind of guiding her a little bit to make sure that we're appropriate distance away from other dogs and other distractions. But for the most part, this is kind of following her and going at her pace. If she wants to sniff, she can sniff. If she wants to kind of cruise and go somewhere else, we can cruise and go somewhere else. But I like to do this for about 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of every walk if I can. So my dog has time to get adjusted, empty their bladder if they need to, before I want to actually have them clock in and do that working walk. And so now that she's had a chance to potty a couple of times and sniff, and I've kind of checked in with her to see how responsive she is. She's been able to leave other dogs alone, which for this dog is really challenging. And she's able to take food really easily. She's able to do all this sniffy time without pulling me on this leash. It's maintained slack the whole time. So I'm pretty happy with all of that, which lets me know that now I can reasonably expect that we can clock in and do some actual heel work. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so it's been about 2 minutes since I turned off the camera and switched her gear back to her gentle leader. Oops. Let's go. Now that we're on a working walk, the rules have kind of changed. She's required to stay a lot closer to me. I actually have the leash attached to me so that I'm not being flexible with how long that leash is. I want it to be really clear and consistent so it's not constantly changing. You don't have to attach the leash to your body, but when you're trying to film and treat and walk all at the same time, sometimes it's easier to have hands free. When I am walking with her in a working walk, The requirement is she has to stay a lot closer. She has to still maintain slack in this leash, but that's with any type of walk. And all of the treats are going to be delivered now at my pant seam. So if I am treating her for healing, I'm going to feed her right at the side of my leg here in this kind of ideal heel spot. And I want to engage those loose leash games. So we talk about loose leash games in various classes. So there's a bunch that I like to practice. Oops, chew your food, love. But basically I want to be able to teach her skills that she can perform while she's walking so that she's responsible for maintaining a nice slack leash instead of me guiding her around with leash pressure. So if I want to change directions, let's go. I want her to know how to do that on a nice loose leash and not feel any leash pressure and not have me dragging her around or tripping over the top of her. Mila, turn. Nice job. Let's go. So like I said, now that we've switched to clocking in, I just like to kind of play with these leash games. Let's go. Good girl. And make sure that she knows how to do all these skills. Mila, turn. Honey, a little sloppy with that one, so we're going to practice that a few more times before we go anywhere new. When I am switching to a working walk, Mila, I want to turn. I want to make sure that she's able to do all the things in a low distraction environment. Let's go. Before I test it in a high distraction environment. So again, on the topic of expectations, I want to make sure it's reasonable for me to expect her to be able to focus and perform the tasks that I need her to do before I ask her to do it. I don't want to test it if I'm not sure if it's going to work. So if we can do all the things in a low distraction environment, then we can move on to higher and higher levels of distraction and expect that she can still perform those skills. Let's go, babe. Notice how we're walking on concrete now instead of on a field like we were before. Let's go. Good. Mila, stop. Because in general, a lot lower distraction level on the paved areas than on kind of more natural spaces like grass or on the trails, because we could go walk on the trails over here, but I don't necessarily want to do that yet. That's a good girl. So again, can she respond to things? Can she take food? Here she's offering nice calm behavior, which is really pretty. That leash is really loose, so you can see it's kind of wiggling there. That's what I'm looking for. So there's no extra pressure or strain on that leash. Let's go. Nice and responsive. So if we're doing well, then we can move on to somewhere a little bit higher level distraction. Let's go. And somewhere new. Sometimes just new is enough to be distracting. You don't actually have to go somewhere where there's a lot going on. So I just kind of want to gradually ease her in to higher and higher level distraction areas so that I know that I'm setting her up for success. I'm setting myself up for success, and I'm not taking away from any of these behaviors that I've created. I don't want to practice failing at a skill because then it just kind of undoes some of our training time. So I want to make sure that she is pretty good at it every time I practice so that we are practicing success. We're not practicing failure. Now we're going to kind of open up to potential distractions here. So we're going to pay attention for a minute. Nice job. Good. Mila, nice girl. Goodness, chewing is a whole different skill set. I haven't gotten that one down. You're okay. Mila, let's go. Good job. I know, that's kind of scary, huh? Good girl. Nice. Come on. Good girl. Kid on skateboard. That was a little intimidating. Good girl. But if we had started that right off the bat, so right out of the car, presented with kid on skateboard, before we had that time to, Mila, before we had that time to sniff around and get comfortable, before we had that time to work on our skills, she probably would have had a much harder time processing that. But because we have worked up to that, let's go. Yes, it was a little scary, but she was still able to respond pretty easily when I needed her to. Mila, stop. There we go. Nice job. So we're just going to watch skateboard guy for a little while. Mila, yes. Good girl. So she can kind of get comfortable with that. But again, reasonable expectations. Don't expect your dog to be able to handle things that you haven't practiced before. Make sure you're slowly easing into things, giving them a chance to practice their skills at easier levels, gradually build it up. And make sure you practice. Getting the dog out there and getting them exposed to the world is really helpful, but making sure that we're always going at their pace. Additionally, I just always want to reinforce good choices. So when she is being calm, I want to pay for that. When she's responding to cues, I want to pay for that. Make sure that she knows that these are the skills that earn reinforcement. Whereas those other behaviors, I'm not going to punish them. I'm just not going to pay for them. And I'm going to try to set her up so that she's not likely to practice them. So if I think that she's probably going to leave it, to bark at something, leave it, like the other dog that just walked by us, good girl, then I want to set her up so she's far enough away that she doesn't feel threatened by it and that she's not overwhelmed by it. Good girl. Okay, we really got to work on the chewing part though, love. Let's go. Good girl. Let's go. So my understanding of her skill set and my expectations of what she can do in any given situation are the most important part of the whole thing to make sure that she is able to be successful. So hopefully that kind of made sense and gave you some good things to think about. Good girl. And happy training. Good luck. So I thought I was done with the last two videos and then decided that I had more to talk about. I know, surprise if you guys know me. But when I am working on outings, a big part of what I like to focus on is my SEEDS metaphor, which is the acronym Skills, Exercise, Enrichment, and Downtime. And I mentioned in the previous videos that we work on a lot of different skills when we're on walks, a lot of loose leash games and walking skills, as well as some recall practice, some focus skills. So there's a lot of different things I can work on to get her brain working and practice draining some of that mental energy. Also make sure that she's responsive to all of those cues. I also am getting lots of exercise with her because we're out on a walk, so that box kind of gets checked by default. Sometimes what I'll do for dogs that do get lots of walks and are pretty fit is I'll add in things like jumping or climbing, maybe a short little stretch of jogging, something like that to kind of add working on different muscles. Balancing on things is a really good one to add in. Lots of different stuff you can do for added exercise, but in general, getting them out on walks is a good place to start. And then the enrichment piece we touched on in the previous videos as well. I don't know if you noticed, but we worked on walking in a big field, and then we practiced walking on a concrete path, and then we practiced walking out in a parking lot. So we had lots of different environments that we were practicing in. And also giving her a chance to sniff provides a lot of enrichment as well. So checking that enrichment box. And then the last one is downtime. So she's just kind of hanging out here. I'm just sitting on a bench and letting her just chill and observe the environment. She's really quick to settle because she's practiced this a lot, but you can see how nice and relaxed she is. She has those little legs kicked out to the side. She got a little alerted right there because there's some kids running by with very large toys, which might be a little bit intimidating, especially if you watch the previous video when she was a little worried about the skateboard going by. So she's watching, but she's still pretty calm. Right there's a maybe. They're throwing things. Oh boy, it's getting wild. Ideally, practice settling in calm environments, but at the park today, we have not been very successful finding a calm space. The park is very crowded today, which is always surprising to me during quarantine period, but that's a separate issue. Anyway, so I want to practice little bursts of settle time so that we are working on relaxing back down to a calm state of mind in between all of the high activity stuff that we're doing. So when we're adding a lot of mental stimulation with new environments and new smells and new skills, and then we're also working on a lot of physical stimulation with exercise and moving our body, we want to also work on calming back down. So all of those are things to consider when you're working with them. The kids right now are throwing airplanes at us, so we are probably going to end this video and move on. So practice, let's go. Practice settling on your walks as well. Make sure you're also getting that needed downtime in so your dog is able to decompress in between all of the stimulation that you're adding on board. It's also a really good exercise to practice if you want a dog that is able to eventually settle like outside of restaurants or at friends' houses or while you travel, things like that. Practicing calming down in between all of that stimulation is one of the best things you can do to create a nice, well-behaved, relaxed dog. All right, so hopefully that gives you a little bit more to think about, kind of wraps up all those loose leash ideas, all the things that I like to focus on walks. All right, good luck, have fun, happy training.